realized I was recording now. Okay, if you skip one of these skill lessons, okay, it's never going to appear again, all right, for the rest of the term. So never skip these skill components. If your campus is doing like a special event and you know it's going to compromise your time in class and you know you're going to have to skip out on something, don't skip this, okay? And what I'm showing you here is just kind of a cropped little section of actually what it would look like in the Smart Textbook. It's not this short and easy, okay? It actually scrolls on and on and on for various lines of text on a page over the course of various pages. So it will be up to you in your preparation to look through this to find out how you can simplify this for the students. Me personally, I'll show the area I'm kind of referring to on the TV, but during my prep, I will have kind of a plan to show on the whiteboard to help keep everything organized and simplified. Okay, along with the skill being introduced will be exercises. So let's assume that the skill being taught that day was on rebuttals. Well, there's also going to be exercises to help the students out. For this example here, the Smart Textbook is giving us a little just motion here saying, this house would make the school year longer to help students learn more. So we get a government's argument over here already in the Smart Textbook. Here's their argument supporting this. Then you can work with your students to come up with a rebuttal for that argument. There are multiple exercises. You may not have time to do all of them. So during your prep, I would pick and choose what you feel would be the most important ones. Okay, let me move this real quick. You can't get it. There we go. All right, the next component is going to be the round component up here. If you ever taught like a C1 or a V1 class, this is basically the component that's introducing the project for the day, except now the project is a debate, okay? And if you, much like in C2V1, you are allowed to change the projects. Same for these debate classes, okay? You may change the debate motion, all right? Kind of hints towards that right here, right? It says motion suggestion, okay? So you can choose one yourself. I think it's actually better to actually discuss with your students and something they would be interested in debating. Nevertheless, I would take into consideration the type of topics you're debating. So what I mean by that is, let's say you decide with your students to to choose a motion on the topic of economics. Good idea to maybe just jot that down that you did an economics topic this week so that you're not doing something on economics every single week, okay? But just really just to show that you are allowed to change the motions. Okay, so once you've decided the motion and hopefully, you know, discussed it with your students, especially if a lot of them are new, you might even, okay, guys, I'm going to give one, let's work on like, you know, let's discuss one argument for the government team and one argument for the opposition, however you want to do it. But you've discussed the motion and now it's team matchup time. This is breaking your kids up into their groups, okay? Doesn't matter, doesn't have to be an even number. It's not always going to work that way. If you have 7 kids in your class, it's totally okay to have 4 kids on one team and 3 on the other. But what is important is if you remember what I said in the very beginning, okay, that whether or not you have the introductory track or the track more for experienced students, you're probably always going to have a mixed bag anyway. So because of that, it's important to note who are the new students and who's experienced, because when you're breaking up the kids in their groups, you don't want all the new kids on one team and all the experienced students on another team, okay? We're trying to have a fun debate here, right? Not a slaughter, okay? The next component up here on the tab is just called prep. There's not necessarily anything you would do in the Smart Textbook, but once you get to this page, this is just to show you, okay, now it's time for the kids to get up, you know, get in their groups, move the desk around, and start working with their groups to research and write their speeches out, okay? So hopefully by this point, you've already decided on your motion, and the students will start working on their speeches. Now down here, This is showing all 8 speeches. Okay, if you remember what I said, students aren't going to be able to do all 8 of these speeches right from week 1, okay? Because they haven't learned all these skills yet. So maybe in week 1, each team might only be able to realistically do the first speech on their team. And maybe around week 3, they'll start building up their skills and they'll now start being able to do the first 2 speeches, so on and so forth. Okay, and the last tab is the debate tab up here, all right? The debate component. Once again, there's not necessarily anything you would do in the Smart Textbook once you reach this page. It's just to show that it's just reminding you that now it's debate time, okay? You always get used to seeing this picture. You'll see it a lot. It always shows this image, and it always says up here, the Honorable Prime Minister may take the stand, okay? Prime Minister is just the name of the first speaker for the government team. Okay. And then along with this, you'll also see this little adjudication feedback. It's got area to type into the Smart Textbook. I never type anything into the Smart Textbook in my feedback. It's just verbal. Okay. Okay. Last thing you will see in the components and in the tabs in the Smart Textbook are these debate challenges. I'm going to tell you now, these are 100% optional. All right, you do not have to do these. And if you do decide to do these, I would only do them if all of your students, or pretty much the majority of all your students, are already experienced. Because if you have a bunch of new kids in your class, they're new to debate, and you decide to do this with them in the debate for that day, you're going to be making it really hard on your kids. So I'm just letting you know, these challenges are more for the experienced students, and they're 100% optional. Okay. So I'd like to go ahead and take a look at the SEG guide. And this will show you some of the resources that will be helpful for you to take a look at when you are trying to learn all of these various speeches and the skills and the roles and responsibilities. Okay, this is pretty much where I started when I was first trying to learn all this stuff. Okay. Everything I'm showing you here, this can be accessed through the FTP. Okay, more than likely your campus would probably also have their own little campus Google Drive, shared Google Drive, that you might be able to find this. But if your campus happens to not have anything like that, ask your foreign management team on how to access the FTP so you can eventually find this information, all right? So things you would find in the FTP are all of the various roles with the responsibilities or the skills needed to that need to go into each of those different speeches. So here's all 8 of them. Okay, other things you'll find here is these little speech format and transition pages here. This just kind of shows good ways for students to start speaking different sections of each speech. AP debate has a formal way of speaking. It's not like kids are going to get up to the podium. Yo, what's up? I think cats are way better than dogs. And this is to get, no, there is a formal way of speaking here. These pages that you can look at can give your kids some good insight on how they can begin speaking with proper transitions and some nice formality. Okay. Other resources you'll find in the FTP is these adjudication documents. These are for you, the teacher, since you're the adjudicator. Eventually, you will want to look over these to know how to be more of a proper and formal adjudicator. But I will say in the beginning, when you're giving feedback to your kids, especially if they're new, I would not refer to this verbatim. I would just stick to what I said earlier and just focus on maybe some presentation skills and whatever skill was applied that day. Reason why is if you're trying to just refer to this right from the beginning, it's asking for a point range on certain skills and stuff. Well, if the kids haven't learned that skills, and that's not fair, right? So I don't refer to this till much later in the term, once the kids have learned all the skills. Okay, so what I'm showing you here is my biggest suggestion to learn all this stuff. When I was first learning all these debate classes, I was learning both AP debate and Model UN, both at the same time. So I was getting all of my speech and skills and all this stuff just confused and mixed and matched up. I was looking over these FTP guides over and over and trying to copy them down, and it just was not sticking. So eventually what I did is using print-offs of these documents I found in the FTP, along with the smart textbook explanations. I took that information and I deconstructed it and then reconstructed it to create my very own templates. Originally, I made these templates for myself just so I could learn. And then once I created all these various templates for every single speech, one day I just thought, let's put them all together and hand them to my students. And they find them very useful. They use them to this day. This is what I would suggest you do when you're trying to learn all this stuff for the first time. Just a suggestion, but nevertheless, at the end of this workshop, I will be providing you with links for everything I'm showing you here. Not only you'll get a link for all the Google slides, but you'll get links for where everything I've showed you from the FTP, and I will give you my personal templates that I created if you'd like to use them. Okay, that covers AP Debate in a nutshell. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a moment here to take questions, because afterwards I'm going to get right into Model UN. So does anyone have any questions? You can unmute yourself to ask, and I'm also looking in the chat box right now if you just want to type your question. So I'll pause for a moment.
Jared,
Yes.
I think Miranda had her hand up first.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was the debate would be similar in structure to like a C2 debate.
Okay. I've taught C2 debate at a different campus, but we did heavily simplify it. I believe the way C2 debate is kind of intended is pre-instructor to masters. So C2 debate, in my opinion, is probably going to be building kids up to more of what I've been showing you here for AP debate intended for master's students. But the C2 D levels, that's more the pre-masters. That's like the C2 high kids. So it'd be more of a build-up, but I wouldn't say it's going to be as formal. It's probably going to be a lot more just like smart textbook work. The way I've seen those, the smart textbook for C2 debate, all right, there's a lot more exercise and activities involved, but not as much time, in my opinion, that prepares kids for a full formal Asian parliamentary debate.
Jared, I also had a question.
Yes, what's up?
So this term I had more than 4 kids in my team.
Mm-hmm.
So would it be okay if I just put like an extra person as like just only doing rebuttals, or should I just keep it as, you know, the 4 roles?
So you're saying for your AP class, you only had 4 students, is that
No,
correct?
I had more than 4 students in a team.
Okay, then so if that's the case, usually what I do, like let's assume I have a class of 16 kids, 8 kids on each team. It's never happened, but if that did happen, then usually what I'll do is, let's say we're doing the first speech. I'll have maybe 2 or 3 kids get up there and they're just all going to go through that speech. But yeah, let's say that speech consists of 2 rebuttals. One kid will do 1 rebuttal or half the speech. Then the next kid will continue off with that speech with the second half. Does that make sense?
Let's say, for example, a deputy prime minister has to rebut 1 argument from the leader of the opposition and has to state 2 arguments. But at the same time, the team had like 5 people in the team per se.
Once again, I usually just, if I have so many students, I'll just have multiple students just share 1 speech.
Okay, like, you know, divided into like rebuttal and speech and kind of like that, or?
Yeah, they'll just, one kid will start it and another kid will finish it.
All right.
Right. Any other questions on AP debate? All right, then if not, I'm going to go ahead and get right into Model UN.
In the chat.
Yeah. Oh, we got a question in chat. The SEG guide has some strategies for dealing with smaller or bigger classes. Okay, great. It's more of a suggestion. Let's see. Why are some tracks marked with... Oh, okay, now I'm looking back. Let's see. Why are some tracks marked with A or B afterwards? Okay, so the whole... what you saw earlier, those tracks like D102, but it was like A, B, C, D. All that means is like A might be for the fall term, and then B the summer. C, that's just for which term it is. The reason they do that is, let's say some kids are now repeating the same like D101 or D102 or whatever. They don't want them to see the exact same smart textbook with the exact same motions again. So it's the same skills, pretty much the same format. I've looked at those. The only thing really that's different is the color for the formatting and the suggested debate motions. But that's all those letters mean, like A, B, C, D. Does that make sense? I hope. Okay, let's see.
I'd just
Don't
like to
see-
add for the person who asked the difference about C2 debate. I haven't taught in a while, but based on what I recall from C2D, it was also loosely based off of British parliamentary. A lot of the skills were that. So there's minor differences. It's very relatable, but for the D program, the one that Jared's going over, this is specifically for Asian parliamentary style debate. Okay. And yeah, it does provide a little bit more, I would say, guidance and much more advanced. And also for the lower levels, I believe they focused not heavily, but like more on logical fallacies too for the C2. And I don't think that's as heavy in the D program.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, without any further ado then, to keep up with timing, unless anyone has a question, I'm going to go ahead and start getting into Model UN. All right, guys? Okay, so made another little graphic for you guys. As you can see right in the middle of the page, I have that versus symbol with a big X through it, okay? Unlike AP debate, there is no real winning in Model UN debate simulations. It's not like our team won, yay. All right. Rather, students are evaluated based on how well they represent the best interest of their assigned country. What does that mean, Jared? So let's take a look at this little graphic here, okay? In AP debate, students would have a motion, but in Model UN, now it's called an agenda. And I'm just going to keep this simple. This agenda is some kind of problem in the world that the students will be working to resolve. Problem we got here is protecting and ensuring the safety of refugees from the zombie apocalypse. Okay, yeah, it's just a silly one. Why not? All right, could happen. If it did happen, countries would get together and try to solve that problem. All right, but nevertheless, all your students in the beginning are going to be assigned a country. So let's assume John, he's representing Albania. Sally's representing Mexico. All right, Mary is Tuvalu, whatever. So these students are going to propose solutions to solve this country. But these solutions need to be representing that student's country, not just that student's personal ideas or bias. So let's say the student representing Germany gets up to the podium and they say, let's give 1 million refugees to the very, very tiny nation of Tuvalu. Yeah, okay. Well, Tuvalu down here, they might be like, whoa, 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 that's not cool. We don't like that solution at all, all right? I'm going to give that student a good score because they are representing the best interest of their country with that decision. Tuvalu is a tiny, tiny little country, all right? They don't have the room to take in that many refugees, nor the money to support them. The student representing Tuvalu here, it shows me that they researched their country enough to know this information about them, okay? And then up here in the corner, rather than the adjudicator, you are now just called the chairperson, all right? Okay, my favorite page. All right, what you're seeing here is a very simplified version of what I can show you for a full debate simulation. Believe it or not, as simple as this looks, this is actually going on over the course of about 3 or 4 weeks, okay? There's a lot of little speeches involved in Model UN. More than likely, depending on your class size, you probably will not have enough time to do every single speech. But what I'm showing you is at the bare minimum, at its core, this is what has to go in to a Model UN debate simulation. At its core, at the bare minimum. Okay, so that's what I'm showing you here, the most simplified version. At the very top here, we have an agenda. Same agenda I showed you before. protecting and ensuring the safety of refugees from the zombie apocalypse, okay? Once we've discussed this agenda with the students, I'm going to assign all the students a country to represent. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just using 3 students. John is going to represent Germany. Paul will represent Canada. Susie, you're going to represent Tuvalu. Once I've given their students their countries, they're going to need to go and research pretty heavily their countries. They're going to research things like the population size, their GDP, their trading partners, their allies. They're going to research all of this information. Okay? Once they've done that, I usually have them present their country profile to the class, usually in like a PowerPoint presentation. But once all that's said and done, these students are going to write a position paper. What's that? There's lots of little things that go into a position paper, but the most important criteria are the solutions. These are the solutions for the agenda, but these solutions need to represent something that Germany would realistically propose, not just John's personal ideas. So let's say the solution here is from Germany is ensure safe travel to island nations. Canada says provide aid to refugees during relocation. All right. So once all the students have read their position papers, they're going to have what's called an unmoderated caucus. Okay. That's just a fancy way of saying that they're now going to start forming alliances. So perhaps Germany and Canada, after hearing each other's position papers and those solutions, they'll be like, hey, man, I like the way you think. Your solutions complement mine, or your solutions work well with my country. So those 2 countries might likely form an alliance together, okay? Once they've formed an alliance, they're going to get together and work together to write a draft resolution. How is that different from a position paper? Well, those countries will provide solutions for that problem, but they're also going to be providing actions. What's an action? An action is how that solution will be realistically implemented. So for example, it says down here, send 1 million refugees to Tuvalu, and Tuvalu will pay for all the relocation costs. Okay, so good way to put that up here. The solution was ensure safe travel to island nations. The action would be like, what island nation, or who's going to pay for it? Okay. Now it's important to note here that poor little Tuvalu, they gave their solution: assist refugees to relocate to developed countries. And Tuvalu is not a developed country. Well, maybe all the other countries that the students are representing, they don't like that idea. It doesn't represent their country. Tuvalu here, they might be running solo. They might be on their own. That does get to happen, okay? So Tuvalu over here, they might be on their own writing their draft resolution. Believe it or not, everything you're seeing here goes over the course of about 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, so here's what the syllabus actually looks like. If you look at the syllabus, it shows you that the full debate simulation, all right, there's 3 for the whole term. All right, they would go on from lesson 2, 3, and 4, 6, 7, and 8, and 10, 11, 12. So it takes like 3 weeks to do a full debate simulation. And then lessons 1, 5, and 9, these are like introductory lessons or little breather room lessons, but they're not actually working towards anything. All right. Typically what I do is I tend to stretch these debate simulations out into about 4 weeks. Just gives myself a little bit more time and breathing room with the students, and I can fit in a lot more. All right. If you remember what I said earlier on that other page, I only showed you 2 speeches, the position paper and the draft resolution, but there are a lot more speeches than just that. But one thing I want to show you now to help avoid some confusion as you're learning all this is if you look here in the simulation, it says like opening speech, country profile, position paper writing, opening speech again. It took me a while to understand this, but the Smart Textbook treats the position paper and the opening speech as basically one and the same, okay? Yes, in Real Model UN, technically they are different things, but here's what I mean by how the Smart Textbook treats it as one is the same. You'll see this page come up quite a lot. It'll say, today you will present your country's position paper to the committee in the form of an opening speech. And then over here on the right, it says at the end of lesson 2, they wrote their position paper, but at the beginning of lesson 3, they're presenting an opening speech. So in real Model UN, in a real setting, yes, these are different things, but the Smart Textbook does treat them as one and the same. Just wanted to give you guys that to avoid some confusion as you're learning all this later on. Okay, but if you do look at this little graphic over here with all these blue bars, you'll see this show up quite a lot. This is the way the syllabus recommends it to do everything over the course of 3 weeks. If you want to do it that way, go for it, okay? Personally, what I would take into consideration in case you do need to cut back some time or I only have time for this or this, I would try your best to understand the most important criteria that pretty much has to be covered to do a real debate simulation. And that's what I've highlighted in red here. Okay, so I'll just briefly go over this. Some of this might seem redundant, but I know it's a lot to take in. In the beginning, you've got to have an agenda and you've got to research you got to have students research and present a country profile. So basically, you have to assign each student a country. John, you're Germany. Sally, you're Mexico. And then they're going to research and present that country profile. The students must write a position paper. Most important part of a position paper is that the students are proposing solutions for that agenda, that world problem. Once all those position papers are read, eventually you got to have an unmoderated caucus. This is just when the students are walking around the class, sharing ideas. Hey, I liked your solutions, and they're forming alliances now. Once all the students have formed their alliances with other countries, they're going to work together to write a draft resolution. This is the final speech. This is the speech that shows all the countries working together to write their solutions with their actions now. Those actions like who's going to pay for it, all right? Who's going to have to be responsible for carrying the burden for a lot of this stuff, for these solutions. Okay, this is just kind of showing you on the left. This is what you'd see in the Smart Textbook. There's different ways you could just alter it yourself. But what I'm going to show you is my simplified version because this goes on the course of 3 weeks. I actually do it in 4 weeks. It just gives me and my students a little bit more wiggle room. Everything just seems to be a lot more clear and better well presented by the way I do it this way. So during week 1, okay, somewhere in the class, we're going to announce and discuss the agenda. Okay, whatever that agenda may be. Zombies are coming, aliens, hostile aliens are coming. Could be a realistic agenda, whatever we decide on as a class. I'm going to assign all the students their countries. John, you're Mexico. Sally, you're Germany. And the students are going to begin prepping their country profiles. There's different criteria that needs to go in a country profile, and that is taught within the Smart Textbook lesson. Students will begin prepping that towards the end of the week 1 class with my assistants. In the beginning of week 2, I'll have the students present their country profiles, usually in the form of a PPT. After that, we'll go through the Smart Textbook. Students are going to learn about position papers and how to write them. And then the students will begin preparing and researching and writing their position papers. Okay, at the beginning of week 3, students will present their position papers. And after all the students have presented, they're going to start forming their alliances. Okay, and then throughout the Smart Textbook lesson, the students are going to learn how to write a draft resolution, and then they're going to start writing that draft resolution with their allies. Or if they don't have allies, they're on their own. And then in the beginning of week 4, the students will present those draft resolutions to the class. Now, you might be wondering, Jared, where's the debate? I understand that question. All right, it took me a long time to understand where's the debate in this class. I see some people already know, kind of giggling here. Okay, as I said, it's not exactly like a big debate battle, but there is some debate aspects, and it tends to happen right here during the final week of the debate simulation. After students present their draft resolutions, okay? Other students representing other countries might not like the solutions and actions proposed in another student's or another group's draft resolution. Like, hey, man, your solutions and actions don't represent my country. That messes me up. So I'd like to motion to amend to change something or remove something or edit something or strike something. So they're going to motion to amend something from that draft resolution. Other students will raise their hands and they'll want to speak and give a for speech or an against speech. And then students will start voting. Yeah, I vote for that amendment, or no, we don't vote for that amendment. And this will go on and on and on and on in a big circle, right? All these amendments will start happening. That's where really the debate happens, okay? And then in the end, there's the final voting, and that is just a final vote to show whether a draft resolution passes or does not pass. Okay, so this is the way I do it. I break it up into 4 weeks. Okay, this is just to show you some of the same, some of the creative liberty you have in your timing. Okay, some of the skills are sometimes when learning to write a new speech. Some of them take longer than others. Some of them go pretty quick and easy. So if you look down here at the bottom, it says at least 90 minutes will be needed for preparation and simulation. Instructors can start preparation and simulation early to allow students more time. So this is just to show you you're not locked into this, strict timeline segment. All right, you do have some creative liberty here. Okay, let's briefly look at some of the components that you're actually going to see in the Smart Textbook. Up here up top left, it shows the first component tab is Reflect. This is not in every single Smart Textbook lesson. It generally just appears in the beginning. And these are just some basic little questions that are going to review Model UN, maybe some things the students learned the week before. I do cover these. I do them very quickly. I just try to have fun with it. I'll be like, all right, guys, let's recap real quick. Who's the best, biggest Model UN ninja in class today? Teacher, I am. All right, prove it. What's question number 1? What you got? All right, I just do my best to have fun with these real quick. Okay, but the next tab, all right, the foundation tab. If you remember from AP debate, it was called the skills component. All right, and Model UN, it's called the foundation component. Same thing, all right? These are teaching the students the skills or how to write a certain speech. This component is the most important component to cover in Model UN. If you skip this, it's not going to teach the students later on how to write a certain speech or a certain skill they need. And what you see down here, this is just cropped, okay? It's very important that when you prep this, you look through this material so you're well prepared to simplify it for your students. Because if you open the Smart Textbook and start looking at these foundation pages, it is lines and lines and lines of text on a page for various pages with just really detailed explanations. You will not have time to just read all this in class with your students. It's up to you and your prep to read through it, find out how to simplify it. Okay, so either you can simply visualize it on the whiteboard or do what I do and hand your kids simplified packets to refer to, which I'll be showing you guys a bit later. Okay, the next component here is the preparation component. There's not necessarily anything you would do with this component in class. It's just showing you that, hey, here's the project we're going to do, okay? In this case, instead of a project, it's an agenda. Okay, important to note here, the Smart Textbook does already propose certain agendas for you, like human rights protection of vulnerable groups. That's the world problem we're going to find solutions for. You are not locked into this agenda. Okay, you can work with your students and create your own, but whatever you choose, take careful consideration to whatever agenda you choose here with your students, because it's not like AP where you just do this and it's over that day. This goes on for the course of like 3 or 4 weeks. So whatever agenda you choose with your students, you're locked into it for the next few weeks. So do take careful consideration with whatever agenda you choose. Okay. And then the last component is the simulation component. This is just telling, there's nothing you would do in the Smart Textbook here. It's just showing you now it's time for students to present their speeches. Okay. Yes, this does happen. This does occur at the very end of a Smart Textbook lesson. I tend to do this at the beginning of the next lesson. Reason for that is if the students learn how to write a speech, start preparing, researching, writing it and present it all in the same class. I've tried that before. It just gets really sloppy. And at the end of it, I don't feel like the students would have gained as much if they just had time to work a little bit in class, go home, do some homework, reflect on it. Okay. That's why I tend to do my presentations or these simulation components at the beginning of the next class. Okay. Another tab you'll see is the voting. I don't do anything with the SMART textbook, but there are two types of votes that you would go through in a Model UN debate simulation. There's a lot of little details involved. You'll research that on your own. Yes, I'll give you the resources for that, but I'll give you this. There's two types of votes. There's a procedural vote and there's substantive vote. Okay, the procedural vote is probably 99.9% of all the voting in Model UN. Okay, this is the type of vote that'd be like, all right, I motion for Germany to be quiet because they're being out of order. Or I motion to change this little part of that draft resolution. I motion for this. All right, that's most of all the voting. Then the other type of vote is called the substantive voting. And this only occurs one time. It's at the very end. And all it is to say if a draft resolution passes or does not pass. Okay, we're getting close. What you're seeing here, this is optional. This is what I do. All right, at my campus, or at least with my students, is anytime I get a Model UN class, I create a Google Drive. All right, and in that Google Drive, I just make a folder for each week, and it shows what I expect the students to complete for homework and when it's due. I like doing this because then the students can just submit their work into that folder, all right? And I can take the opportunity to look at it and just give little bits of feedback here and there, all right? You don't have to do this, but I personally do it. It just helps me out. Okay. There's lots of little criteria that go on before a debate, but what I've shown you guys is the most important. Before an actual debate simulation happens, which is like week 4, the students have to present a country profile, okay? They have to have been assigned a country, research it, and present it to the class. And then before a debate, the students must have presented a position paper that proposes solutions for that agenda, okay? Everything else here, this is just the details for forming alliances and all right, okay? But those two things must be done before a debate. Okay, and then during the debate, the students will present their draft resolution. That's where they have the solution plus the action, like who's going to pay for it. Okay, and then after that draft resolution is presented, all right, there's various little speeches involved. A lot of them can just be optional, but the fun part is right here where the amendments kick in. And this is also where I get heavy in grading the students, because this is really where I see if they're representing their country well, is with their amendments. Based off that draft resolution, if students representing a certain country, like, hey, man, that draft resolution does not work well for my country. We got to change something. All right. I want to see that student at least make an attempt to motion to amend something, whether it be to add something to that draft resolution, change the wording or edit something, or amend to completely strike something, okay? Now, whether or not that student's amendment passes or not, that's not how I'm grading them, okay? I want to see that they understand their country and have made an attempt in this debate simulation to get the room to amend to change that resolution somehow. Okay, so that's kind of where the debate occurs. All right, so now I'm just going to briefly show you some of the resources available to you in the SEG guide. And once again, I also made my own templates for all these speeches. If you look in the SEG guide, again, that can be found in the FTP, okay? Mostly what you're going to find is a lot of just real examples of all the various speeches. So over here on the left, you might find an example of an opening speech, okay? When I was first learning, I would read through these and then also use the SMART textbook that explains opening speeches. And what I ended up doing is I deconstructed this and then reconstructed it to create my very own template. So this template breaks down this speech into all its various roles with explanations of each and how it would actually sound formally when you are presenting it. So here's like an opening speech. I did it again for a resolution draft speech. Here it is, what you would find in the FTP on the left. I deconstructed it and reconstructed it, okay, with all the various little responsibilities, explanations, and how it would sound formally when you are reading it. This is what I would suggest you guys do when you're first learning all this stuff, but it's just a suggestion. Nevertheless, I will be providing you with these resources. Okay, we're getting there. Let's see, what time is it? Oh, we're good on time. Okay, so what you're seeing here, all I wanted to show you is you may have noticed me going over these agendas, but you may have also noticed these committees, okay? Committees are definitely important to know. They will be covered throughout the SMART textbook. But all these mean here is that there's certain committees in Model UN. So this one up here is like United Nations Security Council. Different committees handle different types of agendas. So for example, the United Nations Security Council, they handle the type of world problems, the agendas related to war or lowering the amount of nuclear bombs we got everywhere, okay? The reason why it's good to know the committee is because not every country in the world serves on every single committee, okay? Generally, at any given time, only certain countries are selected for a certain period of time to be involved with a certain committee. So currently, right now, with this committee, this is very recent, I believe all these countries are still involved with this committee, all right, is that there's only like 15 members serving on this committee, 5 permanent and 10 non-permanent. The reason why this is important is when I'm assigning my students countries, I want to make sure I assign countries that are currently serving on that committee, because this is going to help the students when they're actually researching, like what is Malta's involvement with this type of agenda, or what is Slovenia's involvement with this. If you give them a random little country like Tuvalu, they might not find any information, and you're going to make things very difficult for them. Oh yeah, by the way, if you ever see Republic of Korea, all right, as a country, strike it from the list, okay? Because that's just cheating. All right, we're almost there here. A good resource to give your students would be this one up top, all right? This is great for them to research their country profiles. It's called www.cia.gov, or just the World Factbook. Students can type in whatever country they are assigned, and they will find everything. They will find population size, trading partners, allies, GDP, everything. It's great, and it's credible. All right. Another great website is un.org. You will find real position papers here, real opening speeches, real resolution drafts. Great resource. Okay. We have made it to the end. I will be providing you guys with all those links I promised. I'm also going to be providing a little feedback survey so you can say how terrible I was. But I would like to take a moment here to take any questions you guys have. You can just speak up. I'll also be looking in the chat box to catch any other questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so I'm not sure if this is branch specific, but are these debate classes offered for day 1 and day 2 classes?
Okay, that might be branch. I think that is branch specific. At my campus, the debate classes are always the day 2 classes, but I do believe I once heard that they used to be day 1. I may be wrong on that, but I do believe that would be branch specific. But at my campus, it's day 2 classes.
And also, I know that this term we have a supplementary week, like between weeks 3 and 4 or something. So how does that play into our like term schedule?
For the supplementary week, at my campus, I believe the supplementary week is because there's like 13 weeks we had in the term. Okay, 12 weeks were all dedicated towards the debate simulation. And I believe we had one class this term where it ended up being doing the like the achievement, what was it, their academic writing for their achievement test. And then we also had to do some kind of like KSAT, which pretty much took the entire class. But if I ever do have supplementary like material that I need to do, I've never found like a supplementary lesson or anything like that. I just create material. I'll create an activity where I'll be asking the students maybe questions based off Model UN. When was it formed? Tell me what a committee is. How does substantive vote works? I'll just create my own little quizzes for the kids, get their answers. All right. And we'll just kind of do a little like review competition that way. But I've never found like actually any like supplementary material or anything before.
Okay, and then one last question. So when the students are presenting their country profiles, I found that if the instructions are too general, it's sort of difficult for the students to find like good like they need specific instructions. So is there like some specific information that we should require for those kinds of
Yes,
profiles?
that is in the SMART textbook, and I will be providing you with a resource in a moment. That template, you know how I said I made those templates? One of those templates is on country profiles. The SMART textbook does cover all the criteria that needs to go in a country profile. All right. But in the template I'm about to provide for you, it will show you all the criteria with explanations of everything that needs to go in a country profile.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start attaching those links. Let me make sure it's to everybody. Okay, there's the survey. Okay, here's kind of the seg guide of the, I have a few questions about Mom, but I'll ask you on Thursday. Oh, okay, that's from Joe. She'll ask me on Thursday. Link address. There's a model UN template. And then finally, here are the debate slides. Okay. All right. I hope you guys got all of the links. The first one I sent is the survey. Okay. So I'd like to ask if everyone could just take a moment just to fill that out. It only takes a moment. Anybody got any other questions though? All right. If not, thank you so much. Okay. I'm going to stay on just for a moment, just in case, but thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. All right. Have a great one.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jared, sorry I was late because my computer decided to crash.
No,
So
that's
I had to
cool.
restart and then my computer decided to update. So that's why
Mhm.
it took like 10 minutes. So,
Things happen. You're all
yeah.
good.
All right. Thanks,
For
Jared.
the questions.